We know having a good job is so important, and finding the position that matches your interests starts right now. And so it's important to learn about multiple different careers and figure out what's the most interesting to you. So today we're fortunate to be joined by Attorney General Daniel Cameron. He's going to talk to us about his career and how he got here. So Attorney General Cameron, for those who aren't that familiar with your position, tell us about the job of the Attorney General.
Well, thanks, Jacqueline, for having me, and I'm obviously very honored to sit down with you, even though we are practicing social distancing and doing this remotely. But the Office of Attorney General, my job specifically is to be a watchdog for Kentuckians as it relates to the public safety outcomes that we have here in the Commonwealth. And so what that means for me specifically is that we look out for folks as it relates to any sort of civil wrongs that might occur against them. We watch out for people as it relates to fraud, abuse, and waste, unfair and deceptive practices that might be conducted by businesses against Kentuckians. We've got a pretty big office. We've got a civil branch that handles the fraud and abuse and deceptive practices. But we also have a criminal branch that make sure that if any commonwealths or county attorneys or any prosecutors need help in protecting citizens within our respective counties, that we are there as a backstop to help them do that. So, but at the end of the day, our core responsibility is to look out for and improve upon the public safety outcomes for the men, women, and children of all 120 counties.
Absolutely. So you were just elected in November, and you're a very young leader here in the state of Kentucky. And it's an elected office you serve in, but this isn't your first position. You were a practicing attorney before this. So kind of tell us about your positions leading up to this point and how you kind of got here.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give you sort of my educational background. I went to public schools in Elizabethtown, Hardin County. At a very early age, I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. There wasn't some big epiphany or light bulb moment. It was basically a conversation between me and my mom where she said, Daniel, you like to eat a lot and you like to talk a lot. So you probably should get a job as a lawyer to feed your eating habits. And so I said, well, that sounds okay. And I'd known sort of other folks in the legal field and certainly thought that was something that I would want to pursue. And so I went to undergrad at the University of Louisville. I often tell people that, if you want to pursue the law, there's no one particular road that gets you there. You can really undertake or study anything in undergrad, and it's not going to change your ability to go to law school because it's a professional school that you have to attend after you get your undergraduate, graduate, or bachelor's degree. So my natural interests are government and politics and history. So I took courses consistent with that. I had a political science degree that I graduated from the University of Louisville with. And then I took the LSAT, which is the law school entry exam, essentially for law school. I did that and then was fortunate to be able to continue my studies at the University of Louisville and go to law school at the Brandeis School of Law there at U of L. Finished that up and then took what really is the entry point to become a lawyer, which is to take the bar exam. I took that bar exam in July of 2011 after having graduated from law school in May of that year, and then went into the workforce. I worked for a federal judge, a gentleman by the name of Greg Van Tatenhove. After that, I went and worked for a law firm, Stites and Harbison in Louisville, where I worked on financial regulatory matters, the Fair Credit Reporting Act and the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and working with financial institutions. And then I went and had a chance to work as Senator McConnell's general counsel in D.C. I did that for roughly 2.5 years and helped him on legal matters, but also ethics issues and other issues that arise when you're in the position of legal counsel. But in addition to that, I had a legislative portfolio as well. So I helped him on judicial nominations and also helped him get some folks confirmed to the Supreme Court, Neil Gorsuch in particular, and then some lower court judicial nominations as well. So it was a great experience and did all those things. But what I was probably most proud of was the opportunity to work with our law enforcement community here back in the Commonwealth. And so I was the liaison, if you will, between our office in DC and the boots on the ground back here, whether it be the U.S. Marshal Service or Myriad Drug Task Forces or the United States Attorney's offices, our sheriffs, our police chiefs, really the FBI. Really, all these groups are in the thick of the drug epidemic and other public safety challenges that we have here. So it was a unique and wonderful experience, and I was obviously grateful for the opportunity to serve in that capacity. And then I moved back here in June of 2017 and ended up working at Frost Brown Todd, doing some of the same financial regulatory work, but also did some government affairs work too. And then I ran for Attorney General.
And now we're here.
Now we're here.
You've had a really impressive career up to this point with a lot of different positions in there, but I think a lot of people hear about being a lawyer and they're not really sure exactly what all they can do with a law degree. So what other profession, like basically what is a law degree? What kinds of jobs could you get with that type of degree?
Well, I often tell people that a law degree gives you a lot of different opportunities to perform in the larger economy. Whether you decide to go to a brick and mortar law firm or you decide to go and work for a government entity working on policy issues. In fact, there was a gentleman that I went to law school with. He was a biologist before he came to law school. And so there are a whole host of things that you can do, but it gives you sort of the logical framework or a logical way of looking at issues that I think are helpful outside of even the traditional legal sense.
So for people who aren't aware, what does a day look like in the life of a lawyer? And then what's the difference in being Attorney General? What does your day-to-day life look like?
Well, as a lawyer, it can really depend on sort of where you end up landing as a law clerk. I had specific responsibilities over cases that were filed in my judge's court, and so I would be responsible for maintaining and keeping our judge up to date on those cases, being responsive to any filings that were filed by the parties to a particular lawsuit, making sure that I, again, kept the judge up to date on any briefing that had occurred or any motions that we needed to start working on internally. And so it really hones your skills and ability to sort of manage a caseload or a docket, which translated well when I went into a law firm and was asked to not only do the substantive work on serious cases, but also take a little bit of ownership in terms of the process by which we go through litigation. And so, again, it can just range in terms of what the day-to-day is. When I was at Stites and Harbison, like most young attorneys, I was looking for somebody to help give me work at the law firm. I often tell this story that one of the first people to give me work, if not the first person to give me work at Stites and Harbison, was then law partner Andy Bashir. And so I've, certainly had an experience as a young associate trying to find work. And when I went to DC, I generally sort of functioned as a conduit. If, for instance, we got a lawsuit internally, I worked with the legal office of the United States Senate to work through those issues, or if there was an ethics issue, I'd help work through those as well. So there are all sorts of different ways that you interact with the law as an attorney. And now as the Attorney General, what I'm primarily responsible for is making sure that this office is up and running every day, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are looking primarily at price gouging and COVID-19 scams. And so every day I get a pretty voluminous briefing on what those scams look like and what those price gouging issues and complaints look like as well. That's been the primary concern of our office as of late. But we also have other things that we work on. We obviously have the responsibility of, again, making sure that Kentuckians aren't being deceived or treated unfairly in the marketplace. And so from time to time, we file lawsuits on behalf of Kentuckians if there is widespread harm that's being done by a particular company or individual or entity. And then on the criminal side, we work with our local county and Commonwealth attorneys if they need help in any of the prosecutions that they're undertaking. But I like to tell people I'm a repository for information. I receive a lot of information and then I have to make decisions about what are the best way for our office to be helpful in improving the public safety outcomes here in the Commonwealth.
So kind of to wrap all this up, for our middle and high school students that are going to watch this, what is your best advice for them if this is the kind of the career path that they're thinking about? What classes should they focus on, and any resources that you might point them to if they are looking to get into law?
Things that I would encourage kids to start thinking about, whether they're in middle school or high school, if they are, I think it helps if you are just innately curious about sort of life and issues and trying to figure out solutions to problems or identifying problems and then trying to work through, questioning how to resolve those problems or situations. So if you are, again, just curious in general, I think that will help you be a pretty good lawyer, because at the end of the day, you have to ask a lot of questions and become pretty familiar with a given subject matter. So I think starting there and saying, hey, am I somebody that's intellectually curious, or is that an area of life that I need to work on, asking more questions and sort of thinking critically through things? Or there are many roads to get to law school, I should say, and they all kind of merge into taking the LSAT at the end of your undergrad tenure. So if you're passionate about communications, or passionate about government and politics, or passionate about science or literature or English, whatever it may be, I just encourage folks to follow their passion, to think critically about issues. One of the things that I think becomes important as well is your ability to write well. If you can write well, it will serve you well in the practice of law. So that's often something that I'll encourage folks to, as early as possible, to start thinking through their writing abilities, and how that might ultimately help them during the course of law school and then the ultimate practice of law. So again, there's one way to be a lawyer or to get a law degree. You obviously have to have finished undergrad and then go through the roughly 3 years of law school. But yeah, thinking critically about issues now, being a good writer, and just pursuing what your passion is, I think are incredibly important.
Perfect. Well, Attorney General Cameron, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to Kentucky students, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Always good to be with you.